Hello everybody, I'm Ajit Mishra, your course instructor for Essential Life Skills. I'm here again with a new session on great leadership skills. In this session, you'll learn about strategic thinking, another very important indicator of great leadership skills. In the past sessions, I talked about self-development, team development. In this session, I'll talk about strategic thinking, and I'll also show you how important it is for all of us to develop strategic thinking in ourselves so that we can develop some great leadership skills. Let's start with a situation. You're packing your things for travel. There are two possibilities. One is you just go on packing your things that come to your mind. You think these things are important and therefore I'm packing these things because I'm going on a trip. And there is something else. You can stop and think for a while and then think about a variety of things. For example, what will happen if the weather suddenly becomes bad? What will happen in case of an illness? What will you do if you lose your documents or your money? The moment you begin to stop and think in this manner, you are actually engaging in some strategic thinking because you are visualizing certain possibilities, and on the basis of that, you are thinking of a few scenarios and you're also thinking of responding to those scenarios. We may not think of losing money or documents during a trip, but it is also a possibility, it can happen. We may not think of falling ill during a trip, but it is a possibility, and we have several instances where this has happened. So the moment you begin to think about all these things, and then you pack your things accordingly, it means you are engaging in strategic thinking. So that's the power of strategic thinking. It will help you not only visualize the possible challenges in the future, but also think of the ways to respond to those challenges. So strategic thinking is very, very important. I will walk you through the world of strategic thinking in this session. So let's take a look at the different aspects of strategic thinking. What exactly is strategic thinking? Let's first start with what exactly we mean by strategic thinking. Imagine a situation. In the same situation, different people can behave differently. Some people cope with difficult problems successfully, but others continuously struggle with the problems. They do not know how to come out of those problems, how to respond or address those problems. Some people build a successful business with almost nothing. You can think of the great Apple story, Steve Jobs, or for that matter, any other great story or success story. While others pass by such an idea, believing it to be unworthy of their attention. Just imagine that. The same idea that a lot of people find to be unworthy are taken up by somebody, and that idea turns out to be a transformative idea, that turns out to be a great business idea, and it gives you a great business. And we have so many examples of this. And that is strategic thinking. Why does this happen? Why do some people find it easy to difficult? Why do some people find it easy to respond to challenges? Why do some people see opportunities within challenges and why others fail to do so? It all lies in strategic thinking. Until and unless we allow ourselves to engage in strategic thinking, it is not going to happen. So that's the reason why strategic thinking is very, very powerful. So let's take a look at strategic thinking and its important components. What exactly is strategic thinking? A person with strategic thinking has the ability to think systematically. That means in a very structured and systematic manner we can think. And when we do so, we are taking into account all the factors and we are also calculating the probabilities. For it is not without a reason that the word strategy means the art of management in translation from Greek. And that's the translation of the word strategy. So strategy means management. It helps us manage our things well. So leaders require a great deal of management skills. And that's the reason why leaders also require a great amount of strategic thinking or strategic skills. So ordinary thinking is quite enough for everyday routine actions. And we do that. We don't have to think strategically every now and then. So if meal is served to me, I should not go for a strategic thinking before eating it. There may be an occasion when I may have to do that, but on most occasions it is not required. But there are occasions. But those who want more from life, the ability to calculate the consequences of their own and others' actions in advance is simply essential. So if I want more from my life, I'll have to develop that ability in me so that I can strategically think about my actions. And then I can also visualize or foresee the consequences of my actions. So that is strategic thinking. So in order to develop strategic thinking, we'll have to do a lot of things. We'll have to do a few very, very important things so that we can develop strategic thinking skills in ourselves. And we'll have to do this because it is an important leadership skill. So let's take a look at these important approaches that are required to develop strategic skills in us. The first thing is to develop the ability to predict. That means we need to learn to predict. Because strategic leaders or strategic thinkers are great at predictions. Before taking any action, we should imagine that further development of events and the final result which we can get. For example, we can ask ourselves, what do we want to achieve and what will my actions or words lead to? The moment we ask these questions to ourselves, we are learning to think about the future. We are learning to predict. The moment I answer things that have not yet happened, that means I am predicting. What do I want to achieve? I want to achieve this and this and this. And what will my actions and words lead to? What kind of actions am I required to perform? What kind of words am I required to speak or express? So when I begin to answer these questions, that means I'm predicting what I can expect. So, for example, if I'm preparing for a public presentation, I must think about a variety of things. I cannot only think through the text carefully, but also imagine the questions that the audience can ask. Imagine an interview situation. You are facing an interview board the next week, but a week before you can start to imagine what kind of questions your interview board will ask you or you'll be asked during your interview, and how would you respond to those questions. So that is how people prepare for future events, and that's the power of prediction. So in order to develop great strategic thinking skills, will have to be good at predictions. So learning to predict is a good thing to do if we have to develop strategic thinking skills. The second is strategic visualization. Take the example of a surgeon. Before performing a certain surgery, the surgery may be scheduled a day or two after. But imagine the surgeon begins to perform the surgery through visualization. So that's how strategic visualization can help you. So complex changes, roadmaps, positioning or vision maps should be implemented for this particular thing. And that's what strategy visuals can do for us. They can encourage insight, overview and manifestation power because they help us visualize a certain thing that has not yet happened. And we can also visualize ourselves performing that particular task. For example, a singer can visualize singing or rendering a certain performance well before it has happened. A surgeon, as I told you, can imagine the surgery itself. So an orchestra can visualize an orchestration. An athlete can visualize the run, the sprint. So that is a power of strategic visualization because it will help you see things in future, the things that have not yet happened. The third important thing is the power to think through the backup plans. We all know that our plans may go wrong. There are several occasions when our plans do not succeed. Plan A, the main plan, may not succeed. When that happens, it becomes very, very difficult for us to navigate that particular challenge, especially when we do not have any follow-up plans or backup plans. So it's always a good idea to create a backup plan. Sometimes we can create a set of backup plans, plan B, C, D and so on. But it's always a good idea to have a plan B for a plan A. If plan A doesn't succeed, we can always go and meet the challenge with plan B. If plan B doesn't succeed, we can go and meet the challenge with plan C. So when we have backup plans, it will mean that we have given a serious thought to the problem at hand, and that's the reason why we have prepared so many backup plans. So it will always help us if we strategically think of the possibilities and prepare the backup plans. The fourth important component of strategic thinking is to consider past experiences, both our own and the experiences of others. For example, if in the past I made a mistake, I must consider it before I go to a future action, before I plan a future action. I must reflect on my past experiences because that will give me a greater insight into the possible areas of failure, the possible challenges. And that's the reason why it has been very rightly said that successful people are distinguished by the fact that while others think, the successful make and analyze mistakes. And that's the reason why it's very, very important that we begin to have adequate information about our own mistakes in the past and the mistakes others committed in the past as well, because that will also help us analyze problems and prepare a better plan, think about some things strategically. So when we begin to consider our past experiences and the experiences of others, we are actually focusing on the possible weak areas or challenging areas. And that way we are learning to address those challenges. So that is how strategic thinking will help us. So the next important thing is to develop some divergent thinking, logical thinking and thinking outside the box. That means out of the box thinking. So diverse thinking is all about thinking differently, unconventionally, or from a new perspective, a completely new perspective. So this is very popularly called indifference. We'll have to cultivate that indifference. Most people have said that indifference is not a good quality to cultivate in ourselves. But when it comes to out-of-the-box thinking, indifference is one of the most important strategies that we can adopt for that particular purpose. So we'll have to think beyond our comfort levels or comfort zones. So our comfort level to follow the best of our own drum, including not needing to meet the rules and expectations of others, will help us think divergently, will help us think out of the box. And we all know the value of being able to think out of the box, being able to engage in divergent thinking or some thinking with indifference, because that will help us break the conventions, the established rules, practices, and that will help us go and think creatively and see how people in the past have done so, and they have done so with such great success. When we look at the great achievements of our times, we'll definitely find that a lot of those achievements have happened because of divergent thinking or out-of-the-box thinking, because of indifference. And with such indifference, we can think of doing or achieving something that could not have been imagined earlier. And that's the power of divergent thinking. So the moment we become good at strategic thinking skills, we can say we have developed a very important leadership skill, because it is going to help us through the thick and the thin of our professional lives. So that's how we come to the end of this session. I'm very sure you have taken note of the important strategic thinking skills that I talked about during the session, and you're going to explore them yet further. You're going to practice strategic thinking in your everyday tasks, activities, and you're going to implement some good strategic thinking skills in these actions. When I meet you again with a new session, I'll be talking about the other important leadership skill. Until then, bye-bye.